The flight was quiet until it wasn't. A woman in a gray suit stood between two officers, wrists restrained, her breath measured but sharp. The cabin lights caught the tension, not the jewelry, not the uniforms, just the line between humiliation and history. "Ma'am, step aside," one of the officers said, voice flat, procedural. The passengers turned their heads like a wave, some curious, some disgusted, all complicit. A flight attendant pointed toward the aisle, her tone clipped, rehearsed. "She's not supposed to be here." The words dropped heavy. No turbulence, no warning, just the kind of silence that bruises. And in that moment, Maya Kingston knew this wasn't about a seat. It was about every door that had ever been closed before she walked through it. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Maya. The camera would have seen her steady herself, a single breath as calm as it was dangerous. The officer's grip tightened. "Ma'am, we've asked nicely," he said again. She looked at him, not defiant, not afraid, just calculating. "You're making a mistake," she said. He didn't answer. The man in 2C muttered, "Figures," under his breath. Another passenger raised her phone, whispering, "Record this." The young trainee flight attendant hesitated at the galley door, tablet flickering in her hand. She saw the name Maya Kingston glowing in gold under priority client. But her supervisor's glare stopped her cold. "Don't get involved," she whispered, fear wrapped in uniform. The hum of the engines filled the silence like a warning siren too polite to scream. Maya's mind replayed the boardroom that morning, 12 men, 11 white, one line in the minutes. She lacks brand compatibility. That's what they called it, when they erased her from a $5 billion deal she built from nothing. Now, 30,000 feet above the ground, they were erasing her again. The officer's radio crackled. "Remove her quietly." He reached for her arm. Cameras rose. Whispers grew. Maya didn't pull away. "I paid for this seat," she said, voice level. "Twice." The older woman across the aisle scoffed. "People like her always cause scenes." Maya turned her head slightly, her eyes catching the reflection of the officer's badge in the cabin window. "People like me," she murmured, "built the seats you're sitting in." The tension didn't break, it tightened. Somewhere behind her, a child asked his mother, "What did she do?" The mother hesitated, whispering, "Nothing. She just looks wrong to them." The cabin wasn't moving anymore, it was holding its breath. Maya adjusted her cuff, straightened her posture, and looked toward the front of the plane where the seatbelt light flickered like judgment. "You don't belong here," the attendant repeated. Maya smiled, small, quiet, deliberate. "That's what makes it history," she said, and then, as the cameras rolled and the hum deepened, the world began to watch. Part 1. The plane had not even landed when the headlines started forming in the minds of those who had filmed her. By the time the wheels touched the tarmac, half the cabin knew her name, or thought they did. Maya Kingston was escorted down the aisle between rows of staring faces. The officers did not grip her arms anymore, but the damage was already done. Cameras flashed. A passenger whispered, "That is the woman from the fund meeting," and another replied, "No, she is just pretending. The world has always been faster at judging than learning." At the gate, a uniformed airline manager waited, tablet in hand, face stiff with corporate apology. "Miss Kingston, we are just going to clarify a few details in our operations room," she said, avoiding direct eye contact. Maya's heels echoed against the jet bridge floor. Each step sounded like punctuation in a sentence she did not write. The room was small, glass walls, fluorescent light too bright for truth. One officer leaned against the wall, the other filled out a report. The manager cleared her throat. "We were informed that you were occupying a seat under another passenger's name. Could you explain?" Maya looked straight through her. "Under another passenger's name?" she repeated softly. "Try reading the manifest again." The woman hesitated, fingers trembling as she tapped on the screen. The gold label Owner Access blinked on the system. Her voice broke slightly. I do not have clearance for that field." Maya smiled faintly. "Of course you do not." One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, if this is some sort of misunderstanding, it would help to cooperate." She turned toward him. Her voice was low but precise. "Officer, cooperation is not the issue. Accountability is." He froze. She continued, "I am the majority shareholder of Apex Air, the same Apex Air whose logo is on your shoulder patch." Silence cracked across the room like thunder behind glass. The manager's face drained of color. "That is impossible," she muttered. Maya's assistant, who had been silent near the door, spoke for the first time. "It is not. Protocol Delta was activated 10 minutes ago. Corporate security has already flagged this incident for review." The officer blinked, unsure where to look. The manager stammered, "Miss Kingston, please, there is no need for escalation." Maya stepped closer. "Escalation happened when you called police on a paying customer because you assumed she could not afford to sit up front. I am not angry. I am documenting." Her words landed with surgical calm. From the hallway outside, a muffled buzz grew louder phones. Whispers, the beginning of a storm. The assistant's phone lit up with a call from corporate headquarters. "They are watching live," she said. Maya did not turn. Her eyes stayed on the officer. "You wanted verification," she said evenly. "Now you have it. And I want accountability." The manager's voice cracked. "What will you do?" Maya took a slow breath. "Reform it. Starting with this branch, this crew, and this board." Then she reached for the tablet, typed her own credentials, and pressed send. The screen blinked. "Incident logged." CEO directive initiated. She set it down, composed. "You see, when people like me are told to move, we do not move seats. We move systems." The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause, aware that history had just been written in a windowless office beside Gate 17. By the time the airport incident reached corporate headquarters, the footage had already gone viral. Dozens of passengers had uploaded clips from different angles, each one showing the same thing. A calm black woman being escorted out of first class for existing in a space others decided she did not belong in. Inside the operations room, Maya Kingston stood still, arms crossed, watching the live feed on a monitor. Her assistant, Evelyn, whispered, "Every major outlet is calling. CNN, The Post, even financial networks." Maya's voice did not rise. It stayed cool, exact. "Let them call. Truth does not need press releases. It needs evidence." The airline manager who had accused her earlier now sat pale and silent at the corner of the table. She was no longer giving orders. She was waiting for them. Maya looked at her briefly and said, "You did not start this, but you chose to finish it the wrong way." The woman swallowed hard. "Miss Kingston, I followed protocol." Maya tilted her head slightly. Protocol is not protection when it is built on prejudice. The officer near the door cleared his throat, awkward. "Ma'am, we were just doing our job." She turned toward him slowly. "Then I suggest you redefine what your job actually is." The silence was sharp enough to cut. Evelyn received another call and mouthed, "Boardroom ready." Maya nodded once, then pressed her thumb on the tablet's secure ID panel. The screen split into 4 faces, 3 men, 1 woman, all board members of Apex Air. "Maya," the chairman began, "we heard there was an incident. We can handle the PR," she interrupted, calm but unyielding. "This is not a PR issue. This is a structural failure, and it happened under your watch." The room froze. The chairman shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." Maya's tone dropped colder. "Privately is how bias survives." She tapped the screen again, and the feed from the operations room went live to the full shareholder group. Dozens of faces appeared. Some gasped. Others whispered. Maya stood tall, her presence commanding the room even through the camera. 30,000 feet above ground, she said clearly. "Your airline profiled its own owner. That is not a mistake. It is a mirror, and we are going to fix what we see." One of the older board members tried to interject. "Maya, the optics." "The optics," she said, "are the truth you were too comfortable to confront." Her assistant moved closer, placing a printed report beside her. It listed every prior complaint of bias within the airline, 43 in total, all dismissed under lack of verification. Maya held the paper up. "This is not new. This is inherited, but today it ends." She turned to the manager, still seated in the corner. "You will not be fired for your ignorance," she said evenly. "You will be retrained to recognize it." The woman nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Maya faced the screen again. "As of this moment, I am reallocating the $5 billion fund that this board refused to approve. It will not go to partnerships that perform diversity in public and deny it in practice. It will go to those who actually build equity." Her voice carried the quiet finality of a verdict. The chairman opened his mouth, but Maya's gaze stopped him cold. "You denied me a seat at the table," she said, "so I built my own." and now you are all guests in it. The call ended. The room stayed still. Even the hum of the lights felt cautious. Maya looked at Evelyn and said softly, "File the directive, then book me a flight home. This time, I will sit where I choose." The following morning, the world woke up to her name. Every major outlet ran the headline, Apex Air CEO removed from her own flight. By noon, investors were calling for statements, and employees were whispering in hallways, unsure whether to feel proud or afraid. Inside her downtown office tower, 32 floors above the noise, Maya Kingston stood by the window, watching a line of black sedans pull up outside. Evelyn entered quietly, holding 2 phones and a tablet. "The press conference is ready. The board is waiting on your direction," she said. Maya nodded once, her eyes fixed on the skyline. "They expect me to apologize," she murmured. Evelyn hesitated. "Yes, they think it will calm the market." Maya turned, her expression unreadable. Markets do not lose faith because of truth. They lose faith because of silence. She walked toward the conference room, her heels echoing like calm thunder. The glass doors slid open to reveal the entire Apex executive board already seated, papers stacked, faces tense. The chairman began speaking before she even sat down. "Maya, we are dealing with a public relations crisis. Our shareholders need reassurance, not confrontation." She lowered her voice, deliberate and sharp. "They need leadership. That is what they are about to get." She sat, folded her hands, and looked around the table. "Do you know how many people reached out to me overnight? Not investors, flight attendants, engineers, ground staff. All of them saying the same thing. It happened to me too." The room grew heavier with every word. "This company has built a system that rewards compliance and punishes conscience. You want to talk about a crisis? That is the crisis." A younger board member shifted uncomfortably. "Maya, we are not denying the issue, but we cannot alienate our partners. They fund us." Maya met his gaze. "Then we need better partners." She leaned forward. "Do you remember the $5 billion fund you refused to approve? The one you called too ambitious for our profile? It is now fully backed. Independent investors, global equity firms, and ironically, the very people who were once denied seats at this table." She paused, letting the weight of the number fill the air. $5 billion is not just capital, it is correction. The room went still. The chairman whispered, "You did this overnight?" Maya's tone remained calm. "I did this after 20 years of being told to wait my turn." Evelyn stepped forward and placed a new document on the table. "This is the Summit Accord," she said. "A new division dedicated to equity-driven investment, personally led by Miss Kingston." Maya looked at each of them. "You can stay and build with me, or you can step aside and watch. Either way, the era of pretending is over." No one spoke. The city below continued to move, unaware that history was rewriting itself in glass and steel. Finally, the chairman exhaled and said, "Then let us begin." Maya stood, gathering the papers into a single folder. "No," she replied softly. "We already have." She walked out of the boardroom, the doors closing behind her with a quiet finality. Down the hall, a group of junior employees stood waiting, uncertain if they should clap or bow. Maya stopped beside them, her voice gentle but firm. "Do not thank me," she said. "Just remember this. No one can deny you a seat when you are the one building the table." Then she continued down the corridor, her reflection following her across the polished glass, steady, dignified, and unstoppable. 3 days later, the Apex headquarters was surrounded by cameras. Outside, the plaza buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers, their microphones raised toward the glass doors. The company's name shimmered on the building's facade, but the reflection in the windows showed something new, a crowd that wanted answers. Inside, Maya Kingston stood behind the curtain of the press hall, reviewing her notes while Evelyn adjusted the mic levels. "They are expecting a statement, not a revolution," Evelyn whispered. Maya smiled faintly. "Then they should have hired a spokesperson, not a survivor." The countdown began. 10 seconds. 9, 8. The lights dimmed and the stage brightened. When she walked out, the room fell quiet. Every lens turned toward her. For a moment, she simply stood there, composed, centered, silent. Then she spoke. "3 days ago, I was removed from a flight operated by the company I built. Not because of a system error, not because of a threat, because of perception." She paused, letting the truth sink in. "That moment did not humiliate me. It revealed us." Murmurs rippled through the audience, but she continued. In the past 72 hours, we have launched an internal audit across all divisions. We have uncovered 47 previous bias-related incidents, all dismissed under vague policy terms. That ends today. She looked directly into the cameras. To those who were silenced, you are not invisible anymore. The reporters shouted questions, but she raised a hand, calm yet commanding. We are not here to trade blame. We are here to rebuild. The screens behind her illuminated with the Apex Equity Initiative logo. This $5 billion investment fund will not only create jobs, it will correct the imbalance that allowed prejudice to hide behind professionalism. We are restructuring leadership, retraining management, and reinstating those who were wrongfully dismissed. And every single change will be transparent. A reporter called out, "Are you angry, Miss Kingston?" Maya's gaze softened but stayed firm. Anger built skyscrapers in this country, but I prefer results. Another asked, "Will you press charges against the crew involved?" She took a measured breath. "No, because this was never about revenge. It was about reflection." The crowd went silent again. "You cannot change people by shaming them," she said, her voice low and steady. "You change them by showing what truth looks like when it stands tall." Evelyn watched from the side, eyes glassy with quiet pride. When Maya stepped off the stage, the applause began first hesitant, then rising like a wave. Outside, protesters turned their chants into cheers. Across social media, the hashtag #FlyWithRespect trended worldwide. In offices, in homes, in airports, people began to ask the same question. What does fairness look like in real time? Back in her private office, Maya stood at the window once more. The city glowed below her, restless but alive. Evelyn entered with her phone buzzing nonstop. "You did it," she said softly. Maya shook her head. "No, we did not fix it yet. We only made it visible." She turned away from the window, her voice quiet but resolute. "And now, we build what they said could not exist, a system that sees everyone." The skyline beyond flickered with the reflection of her words like a promise written in light. That evening, after the press conference ended and the cameras dimmed, Maya Kingston stayed behind in the quiet of her office. The city below hummed with noise, but up here, the silence carried its own weight. She walked slowly toward the window, her reflection overlapping with the skyline. Evelyn entered softly, carrying a folder. "You have 2 interviews tomorrow, and the Department of Transportation wants a private meeting," she said. Maya nodded, eyes still on the glass. "They will want control, not cooperation." Evelyn hesitated. "You are not going to give them either, are you?" Maya turned and smiled faintly. "No, I'm going to give them something better, clarity." She opened the folder and scanned the printed emails inside. Complaints, testimonies, stories from employees across the country who had faced what she faced. A baggage handler from Atlanta, a flight attendant from Denver, a pilot from Seattle. All of them written with the same pain disguised as professionalism. "They thought they were small," Maya whispered, "but they are the foundation." Evelyn placed another file on the desk. "Legal cleared your authority to establish the new oversight committee. You can name it tonight." Maya thought for a moment, then said, "The visibility board, because people cannot fix what they refuse to see." She sat down, pen in hand, and began signing the documents one by one. Each signature sounded like a verdict, sharp and final. Outside the glass wall, the last of the cleaning crew passed by, unaware that history was being written under the fluorescent lights. Suddenly, Evelyn's phone buzzed. "Maya," she said, "the airline union just issued a statement. They want to meet with you to discuss employee-led reform. They say your courage gave them permission to speak." Maya closed the pen cap, looked up, and replied, "Courage does not need permission, but I am glad they found it." She stood, gathering the signed papers, and walked toward the door. In the hallway, 2 junior analysts froze as she passed, whispering her name like a myth they could not believe was real. One of them, a young black man in a maintenance uniform, stepped forward. "Miss Kingston," he said nervously, "I just wanted to say what you did means something. My mom worked for this airline 30 years ago. She quit because they said she did not have the right look. I wish she could see this." Maya stopped, smiled gently, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "She does. Because you are here." His eyes watered, and she continued walking, leaving him standing in awe. Back in the elevator, Evelyn pressed the button for the garage. "Do you ever get tired of fighting?" she asked. Maya looked at the closing doors and said, "No, I get tired of explaining why we have to." The doors shut with a soft click. Down below, the lobby was filled with reporters waiting for a statement that would never come. Maya stepped into the night, the wind brushing her hair as the city lights reflected in her eyes. Somewhere above the noise, a billboard flashed the new Apex Air slogan, 3 words she had approved herself: fly with respect. She looked up, whispered to no one in particular, "Now, let us make them mean it," and walked toward her car as the skyline shimmered like a promise kept. The next morning began before sunrise. The city was still half asleep when Maya Kingston arrived at the Apex Air Training Center, a place she had not stepped into for years. The hallways smelled of coffee and new beginnings. She wore no entourage, no press, only purpose. Evelyn followed closely, carrying a stack of briefing folders. "The staff is nervous," she whispered. "They have never seen a CEO in this building before." Maya smiled faintly. "Then today is the day they realize they belong here as much as I do." They entered a large training auditorium filled with pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and administrative staff. Conversations stopped as she walked to the front. She did not need a microphone. Her presence carried enough weight. "Good morning," she began. "I came here because change cannot happen from 30 floors up. It starts where the work lives." Her voice was calm but steady. "I read your letters, every one of them. And I saw the same sentence repeated again and again. We reported it, but nothing changed. That is over." The crowd listened, silent but breathing with her rhythm. "The visibility board is launching today," she said. "It is made of you, not executives, not lawyers. You." A young woman in uniform raised her hand timidly. "Ma'am, will management actually listen to us this time?" Maya met her eyes. "They will not have a choice." Laughter and murmurs filled the room, but the kind that carried hope, not sarcasm. "This company will not operate on fear anymore," she continued. "We will operate on fairness. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that is the sound of growth." Evelyn watched her, quietly stunned. It was not a speech. It was a recalibration. After the meeting, Maya walked down to the hangar where an old aircraft stood under maintenance. The sunlight filtered through its massive wings, illuminating the dust-like fragments of memory. She placed her hand on the fuselage and said softly, "I built this to connect people, not divide them." One of the engineers, an older man with gray at his temples, approached her cautiously. "Miss Kingston, I was there the day they escorted you off that flight. I did not speak up. I am sorry." Maya turned to him. "You are speaking now. That is what matters." He nodded, eyes wet with quiet regret. "You changed the way we look at ourselves," he said. She smiled gently. "Good. Now keep changing." They shook hands, a silent pact between truth and transformation. As she left the hangar, Evelyn handed her a phone. "Corporate wants to know how much of this they can publicize." Maya chuckled. "None of it. Let them see it when it works." Outside, the morning light had sharpened into gold. Reporters waited beyond the gates, but she did not stop for questions. The cameras flashed, and for once, the story was not about a scandal. It was about a system rebuilding itself. As she stepped into her car, Evelyn asked, "What now?" Maya looked out the window at the rising Sunday. "Now we make history normal." The car pulled away, leaving behind a company reborn in the image of its founder, quiet, deliberate, and determined to never forget why it had to change. By the end of that week, the ripple of Maya Kingston's reform had reached every branch of Apex Air. News anchors called it the Kingston effect, and business schools began dissecting her leadership like a case study in courage. But for Maya, the spotlight meant little. She was focused on the next step, the one that would turn her message into a model. On Friday morning, she sat in the executive conference room with representatives from every major airline, government regulators, and media observers. The room was lined with glass walls, sunlight pouring in like an uninvited truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we are not here to clean our image. We are here to rebuild trust." Her tone was calm but resonant. "Apex Air will now share its internal reform model with any organization willing to use it, free of charge, because equity is not a trade secret." The executives exchanged glances, some impressed, others wary. A tall man in a navy suit leaned forward. "Miss Kingston, this kind of transparency could expose vulnerabilities. Are you sure this is wise?" Maya replied without hesitation. "Transparency does not create weakness. It reveals where we have been dishonest with ourselves." Evelyn handed her a document labeled Public Partnership Charter. Maya continued, "This is the foundation for our new alliance. Every company that signs this charter will commit to measurable accountability, equity audits, bias response teams, and anonymous reporting directly to oversight committees. A younger executive whispered, "That sounds expensive." Maya turned to him and said, "Discrimination costs more." The silence that followed was heavy but cleansing. She glanced around the table. "You have all seen the footage of me being removed from my own flight. But what you did not see was what came after. Thousands of employees reached out. They did not ask for revenge. They asked for recognition. And that is what this is." Her words hung in the air like a verdict that no one could argue. After the meeting, as the guests filed out, one of the government officials approached her quietly. "Miss Kingston, you may have just rewritten the playbook for corporate responsibility," he said. Maya smiled lightly. "Then let us make sure no one rewrites it back." Hours later, back in her private office, Evelyn reviewed the incoming reports. 24 companies have already signed the charter, she said, including 2 of our competitors. Maya leaned back in her chair. "Good. That means it is working." She looked out the window again, her reflection framed by the city skyline. "They once said I did not fit the brand," she murmured. "Now the brand fits the world." Evelyn smiled. "You know they are calling you the most influential CEO in the country." Maya turned her gaze toward her assistant. "Influence fades. Impact lasts." Her phone buzzed a message from a school principal in Atlanta. A group of students had written her a letter titled, "Thank you for teaching us what power looks like." She read it quietly, her eyes softening. "Print that," she said. "Frame it. Put it in the lobby." Evelyn nodded, smiling. As night fell over the city, Maya stayed by the window, watching planes rise into the sky, each one a symbol of progress rebuilt from prejudice. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a deep breath, not of relief, but of readiness. There was still more to do, and she was not finished yet. 2 weeks later, Maya Kingston stood in the very same airport where it had all begun. The terminal looked different now, not because of renovations, but because of awareness. Posters of the Apex Equity Initiative lined the walls, showing faces of employees of every color, every background, under one message: respect takes flight. Maya walked through the concourse unnoticed at first, wearing a simple navy coat and carrying a small leather briefcase. But recognition spread like a quiet wave. A baggage handler whispered her name. A flight attendant straightened her posture. A young mother nudged her son and said softly, "That is her." Maya stopped near the lounge entrance, the same place where her humiliation had gone viral. The glass door reflected her image stronger now, still calm but carrying the weight of change. Evelyn caught up, slightly out of breath. "Corporate security offered an escort," she said. Maya shook her head. "Not today. I want to walk through this space as every woman who was once told she did not belong." They entered the lounge and conversations paused. The same marble floors that once echoed with judgment now held the hush of respect. A new manager approached nervously. "Miss Kingston, welcome back. We have been expecting you." Maya smiled kindly. "No, you have been expecting accountability. I am just here to see it." She looked around. The staff was diverse now, young, old, different accents, different stories. One of the attendants, the same trainee from that day, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I never got to thank you," she said. "You did not just change this airline. You changed me." Maya's expression softened. "You changed yourself. I just gave you the reason to start." Evelyn handed her a folder containing the final audit report. Maya skimmed the first page and nodded. No repeat incidents. Training completion at 100%. Complaints processed in real time. She closed it. That is what progress looks like when it does not ask for applause. The room remained silent, filled with quiet pride. Maya turned toward the large window overlooking the runway. Planes ascended one by one into the early afternoon sky, silver against the blue. 2 months ago, she said softly, this was the place they tried to erase me. Today, it is where we write everything back in. Evelyn smiled. You think people will ever forget what happened here? Maya looked out, voice steady as steel. They should not. That is how you keep the world honest. The hum of the engines outside blended with her words, carrying them upward, like truth finally learning how to fly. Weeks passed, and the once barren walls of Apex Air now bore the weight of transformation. Maya Kingston's quiet revolution had started to spread, like a ripple on water, widening beyond the boundaries of her company. Her office was filled with incoming invitations, speaking engagements, interviews, and requests for partnerships, but she only accepted what aligned with the mission she had set out to complete. She was not interested in fame. She was interested in making the change last. Late one evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, Maya stood on the rooftop of the Apex headquarters, overlooking the city. The skyline was still quiet but alive. Evelyn joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You have a meeting with the UN tomorrow," she said, her voice calm but tinged with awe. "They want to discuss expanding your initiative globally." Maya sipped her coffee, her gaze distant. "They can wait. I'm not building an initiative for the world to admire. I'm building it for the world to replicate." She paused, watching the lights flicker on in the buildings below. "I want every person who feels unseen to know they matter. I want every company that hides behind policies of exclusion to face the cost of their silence." Evelyn smiled, a mixture of respect and something else in her eyes, pride. "I think you've done that already," she said. Maya turned, meeting her gaze. "Not yet. There are still too many invisible people, and there are still too many systems pretending they are not broken." Maya exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the fight she had undertaken. She had started a movement, yes, but it had to be more than that. It had to be a new standard, a new way of thinking. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but the work was far from done. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen, then looked back at Evelyn. "It's the board," she said, sighing. "They want an update." Evelyn's eyes sparkled with a knowing glint. "Then let's give them the update they never expected." Maya smiled, her resolve clear. She was not stopping until the entire system had been rewritten. She stepped inside, the weight of the future falling squarely on her shoulders. The world was beginning to change, but the real work was just beginning. And Maya Kingston would lead it not with anger, but with the quiet power of truth. She looked back out the window at the city, the horizon lit with promise, and knew she had only just begun to build the future. The next morning, Maya Kingston walked into the boardroom with the same calm presence that had once unsettled those who underestimated her. The long oak table was lined with familiar faces, executives who had once voted against her, investors who had once doubted her vision, and new leaders who had joined because of it. The air felt different now. The tension was not born of resistance, but of respect. Evelyn stood beside her, organizing the reports. "The quarterly review is ready?" she whispered. Maya nodded and began. "Before we begin, I want to remind everyone what this company looked like 6 months ago. It was profitable, yes, but blind. Successful, but soulless. We mistook silence for professionalism and compliance for loyalty. That was our failure." The room remained silent. No one interrupted. She continued, her tone deliberate and grounded. "Since the launch of the Apex Equity Initiative, profits have increased by 12%. Employee retention is up 30%. Complaints of discrimination have dropped to nearly 0. But those numbers are not our victory. They are our reflection." She tapped the folder in front of her. "This is not just about what we fixed, it is about what we refuse to break again." One of the senior board members cleared his throat. "Maya, I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "I thought your decisions would divide us, but they united us instead." Maya gave a faint smile. "It is not about being right or wrong. It is about being ready to learn." She looked down the table, her gaze steady. "We are not just running an airline anymore, we are setting a standard for what leadership should look like." Evelyn handed her a tablet displaying the live broadcast feed. "You are on every major network again," she said softly. Maya sighed, half amused. "I never wanted the spotlight, but if it keeps the conversation alive, then let them watch." She turned back to the board. "Our mission is not to be perfect. It is to stay accountable, because power without accountability always turns into arrogance." The executives nodded, the gravity of her words anchoring the room. "From this day forward," she said, "Apex Air will continue to lead not by image but by integrity. We will be the company that remembers why it had to change." As the meeting concluded, Maya gathered her notes and looked out the panoramic window. A plane lifted off in the distance, its silver body catching the morning light. "That," she said softly, "is what progress looks like when it takes flight." Evelyn smiled beside her. "And this time," she added, "no one is telling you where to sit." Maya's quiet laugh echoed through the room as the plane disappeared into the clouds, carrying with it the proof that dignity, once restored, could soar higher than anything else. Later that evening, the city skyline shimmered under the golden haze of sunset as Maya Kingston stepped out onto the terrace of her office. The air was cool, quiet, and full of promise. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to slow down, to breathe without planning the next move. Evelyn joined her with 2 glasses of sparkling water. "You should rest," she said gently. Maya smiled, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Rest is earned," she replied softly. "And I am not done earning it yet." Below them, the streets buzzed with life. Digital billboards glowed with the new Apex Air slogan, "Fly with respect," while passengers filmed themselves boarding flights that now stood as symbols of equity. The world had changed, not because she shouted, but because she stood still until it listened. Evelyn handed her a tablet displaying a message from the Apex Community Network. Thousands of employees had signed an open letter, thanking her for giving them not just a job, but a purpose. Maya read it silently, her eyes reflecting the faint city lights. "They are the reason this worked," she said. "Every person who refused to accept less than fairness. They built this as much as I did." Evelyn nodded. "You know, there is talk of nominating you for international leadership awards." Maya chuckled lightly. "Awards are for closure. I am building openings." She set the tablet down, her voice turning thoughtful. "People will forget my name one day, and that is fine. But if they remember what we stood for, then it was worth it." The wind picked up, carrying the faint hum of planes taking off in the distance. Each one a reminder of where she began and what she overcame. "Do you ever think about that day?" Evelyn asked quietly. Maya turned to her. "Every day," she said. "Not with anger, but with purpose. Because that was not the day I was humiliated. That was the day the world showed me what still needed to be rebuilt." She looked out at the horizon, where a plane ascended through the fading sunlight, cutting across the orange sky. "They told me I did not belong in that seat," she said, her voice steady. "Now every seat in that plane belongs to someone who does." Evelyn smiled, whispering, "That is justice." Maya nodded slowly. "No," she replied. "That is balance." As the last traces of daylight faded, Maya closed her eyes, letting the sound of engines rise around her like applause for quiet power, the kind that never needed permission to take flight.